All right, in part one, we determined that the Bulls could have won the 94 championship. Now we're going to take a look at 95. That would have made 8 straight. Let's take a look.
I think this one's going to be tougher to call than the 94 playoffs. It's not going to be as straightforward.
You don't think Jordan's winning in 95, bro?
I don't know. 94 and 95 Bulls roster had some key differences from the year before. The biggest difference was they lost Horace Grant. That was part of a pretty good front line they had. Horace Grant was playing well, and they did add Ron Harper, which gave you some good perimeter defense, gave you some good shooting, a good wingman. They hadn't added Rodman yet. You know, people forget that, and that's my big concern. Harper was a good swingman, but that wasn't as important as a big physical guy when matching up against Shaq, the Knicks front line, you know, the Heat with Alonzo Mourning, the Pacers big men. You need it. And then Hakeem. And losing Horace Grant and trading him out for Ron Harper, as much as I loved Ron Harper, I think that was a downgrade for the overall roster.
I actually forgot that little window of time where there was no Horace, no Rodman. That is a weakness. But to me, the GOAT overcomes everything. It's going to be tough. But Jordan did appear in the playoffs, but he joined the team with a few weeks that he didn't even play in 20 games. I think it was 17. He was coming off of baseball. He wasn't in shape. It's a different kind of working out.
You hear people say that a lot, but let's start by getting into the matchups here.
First round, the 5-seed Bulls beat the 4-seed Hornets 3-1. And that's a team. We all used to like that team too a little bit. Big Lonzo Mourning, Larry Johnson, Steph Curry's pops, Del Curry.
That was the starter jacket. The Hornets gear was so hot.
That was a squad, and they ran through them.
Then they ran into the number 1 seed, Penny, Shaq, Dennis Scott, and the Magic.
Who, by the way, were the team that picked up Horace Grant. That's when Horace Grant got salty.
Well, if you look at the season in 95, the Bulls lost to the Magic 4-2 in the actual playoffs.
I wanted to make sure I got this correct. In game 1 of the series, Jordan just shot 36%, scored 19 points in a 3-point loss. He obviously had an off game, but they could have still won if he had some help. If Scottie Pippen had an average game, but Scottie shot 18% and only scored 7 points.
If Pippen has a good game or Jordan has his normal caliber of playoff game, you could argue that one, but the fact is they were both there. Now, this game actually looks like, okay, maybe Jordan wasn't back.
Then they won game 2 by 10, so the Bulls could conceivably have been up 2-0.
Maybe we say it's 1-1, which it was, heading back to Chicago. Game 3, Pippen and Jordan both played well, and the Bulls still lost by 9. So I don't think we can reasonably sit here and say that outcome would have been any different because Jordan and Pippen both played well.
Game 4 went to the Bulls. So let's say it's 2-2, or maybe best case for the Bulls is a 3-1 series lead if they won that first game where Scottie let us down.
Takes us to game 5. So Jordan scored 39, but Pippen shit the bed again. He scored 10 points on 31% shooting in an 8-point loss. So for Pippen to have 10 and an 8-point loss, and I think his playoff average was about 18. I think his career average was like 17.7. You could argue either way on this game. I mean, maybe the Bulls win with a good or even an average game from Pippen, or maybe a good game from Pippen wouldn't have been enough to overcome. So this one's a little bit difficult to call.
So in reality, after this game, it was 3-2 Orlando. But we could say if Pippen didn't suck in 2 games, it could have been 3-2 Bulls.
So we get to game 6. Jordan and Pippen play well. They combine for 50. Still lost by 6. There's a lot of times those two combine for more than 50. Again, I can't really bring myself to give this one to the Bulls. I think best case here for the Bulls, this is a 3-3 series headed back to Orlando. And unfortunately for the Bulls, the Magic were 39-2 at home that season.
That's when Shaq was locked in. Listen, one could argue if Jordan had a better game in game 1, or if Pippen played well in games 1 or 5, he could have came up in either one. The Bulls could have won this series. But I understand it's a tough claim to make at this point.
The debate is whether Jordan playing more of a season instead of just the 17 regular season games could have made the difference if he was at the top of his game. But looking at the numbers, that doesn't really make sense because in the first round, he averaged 32.3 points per game against the Hornets. He led all players in scoring every single game while shooting almost 50% from the field.
Wow.
And that to me seems like he's playing well. Now against the Magic, he averaged 31 on 48% shooting. Combined, those are on track with his career averages. So you can't really say, oh, he was really out of shape. He was out of it. He was playing to his career playoff averages and his long-time averages of 31.5 and 51% field goal percentage. Was Jordan rusty and way off his game? No, he wasn't.
That's crazy because everybody remembers Nick Anderson ripping Jordan, and they all blame Jordan for losing that series. But the truth is, Pippen sucked in 2 close games, and the Magic were a damn good team. Jordan was on point, but to beat these really good teams, Magic were on fire, bro. Penny, Nick Anderson, Shaq, you need help.
Without Rodman and without Horace Grant, and in fact, Horace Grant on the other team, how do you match up on that front line with this team, especially when it's against Shaq and Horace Grant? I think it's tough to say this outcome would have been any different.
This one is probably the one that's the weakest argument.
Let's play it out for the sake of saying benefit of the doubt. Jordan lovers say, okay, it goes 3-3 back home back in Orlando for Game 7, and Jordan shows out. What would have happened from here?
The Bulls would have faced the Pacers, who actually lost to the Magic in 7 games. We had the Bulls beating the Pacers in 6 and 94. But in 95, they added Mark Jackson, which was a very big upgrade over Vern Fleming. Could the Bulls have beat that Pacers team?
They split the season series with the Pacers 2-2. But Jordan only played in one of those games, and the Bulls did win it. So 1-0 with Jordan, 1-2 without. You could argue the series either way, but I might give an edge going into it to the Pacers.
Why is that?
I mean, it comes back to the Horace Grant issue. I think the Bulls losing that size on the front line, going up against Rick Smits, Dale Davis, Antonio Davis, those guys were no joke. Their front line was just bigger and better than anything the Bulls could have thrown at them. Bulls had the advantage on the perimeter, but I don't think that would have been enough in this era.
All right, let's say the Bulls won the only game when they faced off and had Jordan. For argument's sake, let's say the Bulls pull out the win in this series, which I still think they might have. In the finals, they have matched up with the Houston Rockets.
As we look back now and we think of that Rockets team and you think about Clyde Drexler and Hakeem together and shit, people forget they were the 6th seed in the West and had one of the most difficult roads to the finals probably ever. In round 1, they faced the 3 seed, which was the Jazz with Stockton and Malone. They won that in 5, 3-2.
Wow.
In round 2, they had Barkley, Kevin Johnson, Danny Manning, the Suns, who were the 2 seed, and that went 7 games. And then in round 3, David Robinson, Dennis Rodman, people forget he was on the Spurs.
I forgot.
And they beat him in 6 games. This was a team peaking at the right time.
And then in the finals, they ran through that powerhouse Orlando Magic squad 4 games to nothing, bro. They were playing top tier basketball.
That's why I think it would be hard. As much as I would say the year before, I think the Bulls come out on top against the Rockets. I think with the Horace Grant loss, with the Rockets, getting better with Clyde Drexler and stuff, I think it'd be hard to argue that Jordan and the Bulls could have beat a team that was on that kind of run, peaking at the right time, and then won the finals in such dominant fashion against a team that actually eliminated the Bulls. So in all likelihood, the Rockets would have prevailed. That's giving the Bulls the benefit of the doubt in the series against both the Magic and the Pacers, which they did lose one of those, and they could have lost 2 of those even under any fathomable argument.
I get it, but I'm still not convinced, bro. I'm not convinced Jordan lets them lose because Jordan is that team killer. He took the steam out of so many good teams in his career. But I get it, the Horace Grant thing. He wasn't there. This is the strongest argument against the Bulls winning would be 1995.
Yep.
But I'm never going against Michael Jordan. Tell me a different time when it happened. You can't tell me.
So let's say the Bulls win it in 94, which I think we feel pretty good about saying. That gives Jordan 4 rings in a row. Then they don't win it in 95.
All right.
Then they win 96, 97, 98. So that gives Jordan 7 rings in 7 finals, 7-0 in 7 finals in 8 years. What does that do to the debate between LeBron and Jordan?
If you call me to debate LeBron and Jordan at that point, I'm just going to press end. I'm not even going to pick up your call. Listen, I already got Jordan the best of all times. Nothing changes. It just gives him more distance from LeBron. LeBron went to 8 straight finals and he was 3-5, bro. You can't tell me that's better than going to 7 and 8 seasons, going 7-0 or 4 in a row. That's what LeBron thought he was going to do in Miami, and you saw how it turned out. It's just a difference. You can see it. Kobe has it. Michael Jordan has it. When they're there in the finals, they smell blood. There's something different that activates. The ring is too close. He smells blood, and we see how he performs.
Let's not forget, you're also throwing in, if he doesn't take off those 2 years, additional stats from 147 games. Jordan has played basically 70% of the games that LeBron played, and he's got 80% of the points. For me, even with just 147 games, Jordan just climbs further ahead. But in terms of the rings, the stats, the skills, the eye test, I think this just gives Jordan even more distance personally. I think if Jordan stayed with the Bulls after the 98 season, he would not have gotten back to the finals, may not have even gotten back to the playoffs. I think he probably would have pushed them to, but Phil Jackson gone, Scottie Pippen gone, Dennis Rodman gone. It's hard to imagine when you look at those rosters. That team finished 13-37 in that shortened season in 99. Then the next 2 years, they won 17, they won 15. You had Jordan on those teams,
Yikes.
he might double their wins. They're still not a playoff team. Now, that's not to say if he was there that the organization wouldn't have managed things very differently, you know? Maybe Pippen would have stayed. Maybe Phil Jackson would have stayed. Maybe Rodman would have stayed. Maybe they would have brought in new guys, you know, but if you just add him to these rosters, they wouldn't have got back to the finals and probably wouldn't have gotten to the playoffs either.
Yeah, and if he joined the Wizards in that 98, 99 season, I don't know if they would have made the finals either. Maybe they make the playoffs, but they weren't getting to the finals. Not with those teams, Strickland, Juwan Howard, Rip Hamilton.
I don't know that he would have gotten back to the playoffs. Maybe with the Wizards, definitely not with the Bulls. I don't think he's getting to another final. So I think the way I would conclude this is 7 finals in 8 years, 7-0. That to me speaks volumes.
So there you have it. You made a very fair argument about 95. The Rockets was that team. I may or may not be convinced, but look, I'll give it to you. You made a fair argument. 7 rings, dog. That's it. That's the GOAT for you, bro. 7 rings.